I would much rather be asking the question, Sarah. And you know that. I scrape my hair back with none of these hair pieces and no eyelashes and no makeup. They see what I look like. I'm coming in cold. I could not have done any of this without him. Not one day.
Natalie Barr, welcome back to the Stellar Podcast.
Well, it's great to be back, Sarah.
It's so good to
I like
have you
your set.
back.
I like the new set. It's cool.
Oh, that's good.
The lounge chairs.
That's a high compliment from
Yeah.
somebody that works in broadcast media.
No, comfy.
They're quite comfy. It's a Friday morning while you and I are sitting here. Although having said that, you've been up since 3 a.m, so it probably feels like early evening in your time zone.
I know. 1:30. I'm going through a phase. I often go through phases where I can't sleep properly. At the moment, I'm getting up at 1:30. So I just get up, I lie there for a while, realise I can't sleep, and then I think, stuff this. So I just get up at 1:30, have a shower and sit in the lounge room with my coffee, with my first coffee.
And on a day like that, when would you start to wilt then, if at all?
Right about now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good timing. Well, the good thing we've got the comfy chairs then. You just go back, have a little
good.
snooze. It's all good. So one of the things that's happened officially, I think, since you and I last spoke, which was at the beginning of last year, is that you have officially now become the longest serving anchor on breakfast TV in Australia. 23 years you have now been on Sunrise. The Logies were earlier this month, and Dr. Chris Brown, who was co-hosting red carpet coverage, made that observation. One of our podcast producers, Lies, took note of that. So I thought we'd open with that fun fact. And what does that milestone mean to you?
You know, I've never been one to sort of count the milestones. I sort of almost feel a bit weird. I don't really know why. I'm just one of those people who loves still getting up, even though it's an ungodly hour, and going in and doing the job. I get excited to do this job every single day. I get in there and I'm reading papers and talking to the producers about what angle we're going to take on a story and what questions we should and shouldn't ask. And then, of course, it all changes sometimes when we're in the studio and you're in the thick of the interview and you're trying to read the facial sort of signs of someone when you're in the middle of an interview. I don't think of how long I've been doing it or how it started. It doesn't really kind of get me going.
It's a bit like that saying life is what happens when you're making other plans, because it just happens.
I know, and it's nice to reflect, and then you sort of think, okay, great. And what's in the show on Monday? Let's make it the most exciting show we've had for a Monday in a while. You just kind of get on with it. And I don't know, we're at a great spot in the show. Shervo and I are a real sweet spot. He's been on the show for a couple of years now, and we've got lots of exciting things planned for the rest of the half of the year, and the producers are working on next year. It's just, I feel like we're in a real flow. So I'm just excited for what's ahead. I'm not really looking at what came behind.
When you and I last sat down, Shervo would have been sitting alongside you for about a year, just under a year. He'd started the previous year in 2023 when your long-time co-host David Koch had stepped down. How is that dynamic with Shervo? Has that evolved more? At the time you described it as it was going really beautifully, but it had been a huge gamble because anyone stepping into that chair is a high risk because there's huge scrutiny and people will either then observe how they're performing in the role, but also how that changes the dynamic with everyone else on the show, most importantly, of course, their co-host, which is you. So, yeah, as we're sitting here, hurtling towards the second half of 2025, how's it going with the two of you?
Fantastic. Australia loves Shervo, and we just get along really well. He knows how to niggle me. I know how to give him heaps as well. And sometimes during the news, I hate to admit it, we're actually not listening to some of the news bulletins. We're actually trying to whisper to ourselves and either talk about what story's coming up or actually have a bit of a gossip. We just get along really well. It's going really, really well. So I guess better than anyone could have hoped. It's it's just really, really great. Yeah.
I know you and I have talked before about times where you don't necessarily be best friends with whoever you're working with behind the scenes or on air, but you just get on with it. But what does it add to it when there is that genuine friendship that you are even chatting during the news? No offence to the fabulous news presenters, of course.
Exactly. I think it just helps being with someone for that long. We sit next to each other for a long time. We're on air for nearly 4 hours. 5 days a week. So it's a long relationship, and we're touching each other. Our knees are virtually touching. It's a very sort of physically close relationship, and very few offices are like that. Very few work relationships are like that. And then we're presenting to Australia. So we get to know each other on a really sort of, I guess, a deep level, because we get to know each other's families and each other's likes and dislikes. And when someone's a bit off one day, or when someone's, on a high one day, or they're looking forward to the weekend, or they've got something coming up, or you kind of know everything that's happening in their life. You know what not to mention, because they're sort of a bit sensitive about something, both of us. And it's sort of like a deep dive into everyone's life. It's a real yin and yang relationship. It's sort of like no relationship that you have, because it's obviously not as close as your family, but it's not as far away as any office relationship. So I love it. I love the fact that we can have such a fun work relationship, and we can share that with the nation as well.
It's also, I imagine, the trust, Nat, that's required, because it's live TV and you've really got to know that you've got one another's backs. And if one of you is stumbling or not sure, that the other one will be there. And if the other one's just really killing it, that also that person isn't threatened and is supporting them. So that trust and that intensity is probably what creates that very unique dynamic, do you think?
You're on a sort of heightened alert in that studio, and you're on it for nearly 4 hours. So you're really alert to what's happening in front of the camera, the person that you're interviewing. But you're right, you're really alert to whether you think the other person wants another question, or whether they're being affected personally by what's being said, because a lot of the stuff we do is quite emotional. There are some really sad interviews, and you think, oh my goodness, this is really striking my co-host, or it's really striking me, and he can notice when it's affecting me, or vice versa. We've had quite a few instances where we've both thought the same thing, because we've both got teenage kids, and I feel like we're on the same plane with a lot of those thought processes when we're interviewing someone where they may have lost someone, and we both are taking it to heart so much. And you can feel the energy, because we're so close to each other, and the heaviness, and we're thinking, oh my goodness, this person is, we're deeply affected by what this person is saying. And then we get off air and we both look at each other, and we've both had tears in our eyes. We've definitely had many, many moments, and that definitely brings you closer together.
That empathy that you and Shervo both have, I think, is a really important trait to hold on to. All the good journos I know have it, despite, I think, assumptions probably that people in the media don't have it. The flip side of that, of course, is when we're then trying, as you say, you come off air with tears in your eyes, and when that spills in, I'm reminded of the moment where you did tear up on air when you were talking back in the aftermath of the Lindt Cafe siege in 2014, where Katrina Dawson had passed away. She was a mother that was in the cafe and died, and it came to light during that conversation that you actually knew her brother, I believe Sandy Dawson, who's also since passed away. Now, that moment is probably the only time I remember seeing you visibly emotional on air. Is that correct? I haven't fact-checked that. Sorry, this is an impromptu question here. It's not in my research notes here. And how did you feel in that moment? Because from that I know it felt, I thought it was a really beautiful, heartfelt moment. But would I be wrong to assume that you might have felt a bit uncomfortable or hard on yourself after it?
I've actually had many moments since then that I've been upset on air. And it's, you don't like when you've mourned someone who you've lost. After the fact, maybe a year or 2 or 5 years or 10 years, you don't know when it's going to come at you. We've all had that situation, and it hits you and you think, where did that come from? It wasn't necessarily the anniversary. It wasn't necessarily the Mother's Day or the Father's Day or Christmas. It was just something, and sometimes you don't even know why, and it just hits you and you can't recover. And I've had moments like that on air where you just feel for this person and think, I suppose, like all of us, I've had many, many messages where people have written into us and said, oh, I was crying in my lounge room too when you interviewed that mum or that dad or that person who'd lost their brother. Because there are so many awful stories in the world. And I think as a journalist, you never want the story to be about you. It is not about us. So I feel bad when I get upset. But and Shervo's the same. Sometimes we can't help it. It just gets to you. We're human too, obviously, and you try and be professional because that's the job we have. But sometimes you just feel so deeply for these people who've been through this tragic, tragic event that you can't help it. So,
in that 23 years that you've been on the show, do you think the expectations of the audience have changed in that way?
I don't know. Look, I look back and I think we've always had a big laugh on Sunrise. There's a lot of old footage of us having a laugh. But lately, I think with after COVID, with the cost of living crisis, with people sort of, going through a lot the last few years, people tune in and they want the news. And we've found that people are coming back to particularly free-to-air television. The stats are showing it, particularly this last year. I think people are turning back to us. They want respected news, and they also want a bit of fun, and that's what we're giving them. And I suppose, like, you're sitting around a table, you're chatting about, world events, and once you get that information, then you can sit back and you can relax with a friend. That's how it feels. We're laughing amongst ourselves and chatting on that desk, and it's almost like the audience is part of us. We're in their lounge room, but they're sort of in our studio as well. That's how we're inviting them in, and it's part of the chat. And then people DM me all the time in my Instagram messages, and I chat with them, and they want to know what top I'm wearing or where the chicken recipe is, and I'll find it on the website, send it to them. It's a conversation. It's a community. And I think you're right, people really want to be part of a community. And we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are part of the Sunrise community. And we love that. And it's growing.
Looking back on that 23 years, your observations, what do you think has changed the most? Your life has obviously changed a lot in that 23 years.
Yes, I had babies.
You had, exactly. And professionally, the whole landscape has changed. We've seen digital media revolution, everything you've just also been talking about, the way that amplifies and grows communities. We've seen people maybe move away from mainstream media, as you say, lean back in. They've found new ways to consume the content that all of us are producing. I just said we're producing content. That's not a phrase that I would have used maybe even 5 years ago.
No.
So who do you think has changed the most, the audience, the landscape, or the people like yourself who are the faces and the heart and soul of presenting that content?
I think our product evolves all the time. We have to. We can't stand still. And we have each year. We find new and interesting ways of doing things. But I think the essential part of our show is the journalism and the news. And then we have a lot of fun either side. And we do the cooking segments and the fun segments, and we dance around and, We have great, musical artists. And so that's part of it, because you can't have 4 hours talking about politics. I mean, we all like to grill a politician to find out what the hell they are doing for us. But let's face it, no one wants to talk about that for nearly 4 hours. And I think you're right. We've seen people move away a little bit from free-to-air TV, and people sort of forecast the downfall. But then, the figures are actually astounding. 19 million Australians tune into free-to-air TV every week. 2 million people every day watch the 6 p.m. news around Australia, and 1 million people watch Sunrise. So they are coming back in their droves. We have just had stats in the last year showing Sunrise is growing. It's grown 7% in the last year. And if you run a company, if you run a business, you know that a 7% increase is pretty good. So I think we're finding that people have tried different mediums and they're still consuming them, but they also want, especially in an election year, they also want the journalism. They get their information from lots of different sources, but they also want to trust where they're getting their news from. So that's what we're finding.
Because when you first started on the show, you knew what the audience wanted. I mean, there's always ratings, and people would have been still writing in the old school mailbag in the Australia Post, and then the email thing. With that literal direct line to you now, I mean, people listen to this and go, I didn't know Nat checked her DMs. I mean, you might start getting lots of questions now for what you're wearing and recipe recommendations. So hopefully, brace yourself for that. Has your knowledge of the audience increased in that way, do you think, because of the era that we're living in, the parasocial age?
Yeah, absolutely. I have really interesting discussions on my DMs. Even I do I often do cooking segments myself where I find recipes online, because I'm not a great cook. I'm just I would say the average Aussie cook. So I get recipes online from a cook or a chef, and I try and replicate them in my kitchen with, varying degrees of success, often failure. But I just sort of, say what the recipe says. And the cook or the chef who actually wrote the recipe has not realised, what is a dollop supposed to be? Or what is it, 1 to 2 teaspoons? Is it 1 or 2? I try and do exactly what they say. And then they probably realise that, the recipe is quite ambiguous. And then lots of people end up writing in and sort of discussing recipes. It's what we do every day. Girls got to eat. People have got to cook their dinner. So we do it all the time. And people want to discuss their chicken recipe.
I want to ask you a little bit in a moment about your actual husband, because, I know you're not counting Milestones, but there's one coming up there this year. But if I just stay on your on-screen husband for now, we've spoken about Shervo. David Koch, of course, you worked together for so many years, had a really close relationship. Now that he's been off the show for 2 years, do you still keep in touch with him?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We catch up for lunch sometimes, and, I congratulate him on things he's done. We text each other and, see what the grandkids are doing. Yeah, I think when you work with someone for a long time, Mel as well, I talk to Mel. I think you always do that sort of thing when you've worked with someone for that long. You just keep in touch. So it's nice.
But I guess with Koshi, because it's more recent as well, is it interesting to sort of say, well, how is it? Like, how is your sleep routine changed? Like, does the day look differently? Do you miss it? Are you at home going, I mean, he's still producing content across a range of platforms, busy. As is Mel, of course. But that particular sitting in the living room of Australians for, more than 3 hours a day, does that give you a bit of an insight into what it would look like if you ever leave, and also find out him from you, what it's still like being in the middle of it every day?
I can't think that far down the line because this job is so consuming. This job is your life. When you're in it, it's your life. There's, I sort of, I go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm up at, this morning was 1:30. Sometimes mostly it's 2:30. My alarm is set for 2:40, but usually I beat it. I'm up and turn it off when I'm heading down to the bathroom. I'm at my desk at 3:30. I'm down to makeup at 4:10. I'm in the studio at 5:15. It's very regimented. And then I'm home mid-morning. I have a nap for an hour in the middle of the day. And my afternoon is reading news, then making dinner. It's pretty all-consuming. It's so much easier now that I don't have kids, little kids. That was, as you know, that is all-consuming. If you're a working mum particularly, that's really, really hard, particularly if you're a single mum or a single parent. That's very, very hard. So I couldn't say that it was that hard. But now I feel like I can't see past what I'm doing now. I'm sort of just trying to live in the moment.
Obviously, one of your former colleagues, Samantha Armitage, she left Channel 7.
Yes.
That's, of course, when you became co-host.
Yeah.
4 years ago now, 2021.
I know. Wow, it doesn't feel like that long.
I was going to ask you about that. But with Sam, so she's at 9 now, and then over the summer when you were on break, she filled in on the Today Show for a few days, which I did ask Carl about earlier in the year. But for you, because you were on leave, I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but also would that have been weird if you had been on air and then a former, because I know it's a small industry and I know that TV is musical chairs, but there's musical chairs and then there's like sitting on your lap musical chairs. That would have to be strange if you had been on Sunrise and then Sam would be on Today at the same time, would it? Or
No, because I mean, look, she was really happy to leave, and she's doing great. She's got a big new show coming out. I missed her at the Logies because I saw shots of her and I didn't run into her. She was at one of the tables, I think, just in front of us. So I meant to catch up with her, but I missed her. So yeah, no, I think there's this whole sort of philosophy that everyone's sort of, somehow enemies in the media. We're actually not, surprisingly.
I know it's disappointing. Well, it doesn't stop.
It's so disappointing, Sarah, but we're not actually enemies.
Doing 50 catfight headlines a day, but we've spoken about that before. I wanted to talk about your actual husband, not on-air husband, and also Milestones. So it's actually 30 years this year since you and your husband, Andrew, were married. Got married in December 1995.
It was.
What are your memories of that day?
Wow. I can't believe it's 30 years. We were so young. We were 27. So, yes, many years ago. And it was just a great day. We had a beautiful marquee that my mum and her friends had decorated. And we were living in LA at the time, and we'd come back to get married, and then Andrew went back to LA after then, and I moved back to Sydney. So we were trying to sort of coordinate ourselves into one city. It was just a beautiful day. We were friends for years before that, so we had started as best friends. We'd started our relationship as best friends, and we still are. So I feel really, really grateful that that's been our relationship. I could not have done any of this without him. Not one day.
Have there been times where I imagine he's extremely proud of what you have done with your career and the fact that you are there 23 years on in that role, and it's a tough industry, and you've spoken to me and other people in the media in the past about the challenges that have come along the way, and there were times we've been given opportunities that didn't seem like opportunities. How has he felt about that, the good times and the bad, and for you as well, because I think any partnership, any friendship, any marriage 30 years on, even just through what the other person is going through professionally, is their success is your success, and their hard moments, you feel those just as much as they are.
Yeah, well, you live through each other's, successes and not such good times. You raise a family, you're a team, and I've always felt like we're a team. And I feel really, grateful that we've had each other through this time. I feel grateful that we've had 2 beautiful kids through that time, and that, we talk to each other several times a day. We support each other. Every bit of news goes to him first, and the same with me. So, yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be able to share your life with someone. It's a real gift. So I'm very, very thankful.
It's so nice that you still talk multiple times a day because you don't always hear that in any long-term relationship. Sometimes even a few years on, people go, oh, well, like a bit, I'll talk to them tonight or something. To have had that, I imagine, is a huge indication of how that relationship has had such longevity.
Well, he does joke that I do talk a lot, and on the weekend sometimes it's like, I'm just watching the footy, honey. You're paid to you're paid to talk during the week. You're not paid to talk here. Maybe a bit of silence. So, yeah, there's no problem with me talking and sharing. He would attest to that.
As a mum of two boys, and they are both at university now, your sons, and they're not living at home. But is that also feedback that you got from your sons? I mean, as a mum of two boys myself, Nat, I might just be happening to ask that for a friend. The observation, little less chat.
Little less
please.
chat. Yeah, I find that you have to get the message in the first sentence. The very first part of the first sentence, and I wouldn't be including any key messages in the second sentence. Real, I'm not even joking.
Because by the time you've gotten to the core information, 10 words in, eyes have glazed over. Sorry, I didn't actually hear. I'm sorry, I wasn't really listening. It will later transpire.
Or they've picked up the phone, or they're mentally onto something else. And now that because one's in Canberra and one's been in Melbourne, now I find that they'll be distracted when you're calling them. So not all the time, and it depends what it is, because they are really, they're actually both really good talkers. So strangely enough, they've picked that up from somewhere.
I can't think where.
Yeah, but there is a moment you can see in the conversation where you would probably happily talk for another half hour, and you can feel it. You're like, okay, I better wrap this up. It's time for a commercial break.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
You're used to that, aren't you?
I know.
It's a producer in your ear. Okay, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah,
You're like,
you can feel
all right.
it.
Same when I'm talking.
Yeah.
Same when I'm talking to my sons.
Do that.
So do you and Andrew have anything planned for the actual 30th anniversary in December? And I think you recently went to Europe, is that right? So is that a bit early just to sort of take advantage of the northern summer?
We hadn't been to Europe together for about 25 years, since before we had the kids, and we thought instead of having a party, we'd like to go to Europe. So we went for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. And we met up with one of my sons who was on a uni break, who in his couple of semesters he worked at a pub and saved his money, and he was away with his mates. So we met up with him for the last few days and flew home with him. So It was great. It was so wonderful. I think you get so tied up with your life and working and looking after the kids that we hadn't done anything like that for an awful long time. So it made us want to definitely try and do more. But then you're back at work.
Your wedding dress, do you still have I
do. In Mum's wardrobe at home in Bunbury. Yeah, the veil, everything. I know. I loved my wedding dress, even though it's that old. Wow, I haven't got it out for a while. Maybe this is the year.
The 30th anniversary, I think so.
You can't believe it's 30 years, though. You really can't. That feels like it's someone else saying that.
When thinking about this cover with you, was looking and saw that it was your 30th wedding anniversary coming up at the end of the year, and suggested, my people spoke to your people. I said to my people, can we see if Nat's husband Andrew would be in like one of the photos with Nat? And
good luck with that.
Polite decline. So I just
always a polite decline. He will never.
Decline.
It's a big no. He's not into that.
Wanted to ask you about that. The relationship, because obviously some relationships, especially when people have such a familiar relationship with you, and the format of breakfast TV is so intimate that people feel that they know you. And obviously over the years there would have been the chat, there's anecdotal chat about family life, and your husband almost as a supporting character off screen, for instance. But that aspect of him keeping his life very private and the two of you being very private, has that been something that was intentional from you from the start? Was that just who you are and that hasn't changed? And do you think that's affected at all or been one of the many, many factors in the longevity of the relationship?
It was something that we decided years ago. Well, he was never interested in doing media stuff, photos. There's the odd photo when he was, I think, roped in when we may have gone to a premiere. So there's the odd photo of him around. It's just not his bag. We also said no for. We also didn't want the kids to do photo shoots either, and we've been asked, like you would have asked many, many times, can we do shoots with the kids? We also decided very early on we weren't going to do stuff with the kids. So I think we did one Women's Weekly shoot, and one of our kids was over 18 and the other was nearly 18. And I think that's the only shoot we've ever done with the kids. It was just a personal preference. And I think everyone just makes their own decision, and that was ours. That I feel like I share lots of my private life on air. I talk a lot about me and what I'm doing and what I think about things, and I have for many, many years. But I suppose you kind of feel like you need to draw the line somewhere, and that's where we personally drew the line. So we drew it and we just kept it, and that was it. And that's our little family decision, and we're kind of happy with it.
Last time we spoke, we talked a little bit about you and Andrew being empty nesters.
Yeah.
Although Gwyneth Paltrow calls it free birding. Now, are you
free
familiar
birding
with that phrase? How does that impact you as a couple and as two individuals?
Yeah, I think we're getting used to it because you're right, it was a real shock. And since our second son moved out early last year, I've talked to so many women who've said, wow, this crept up on me. My, even one or more children have moved out or they've moved away, and I was not prepared for this. And I feel like I've not counselled, but I've commiserated with quite a few women who were not prepared, and several men actually, who were just actually a man on the red carpet who I won't name, at the Logies. And he was like, wow, my wife and I are just so sad. One of our kids has just moved away. We just weren't prepared, and we just didn't expect this emotion to happen, and we're just wandering around the house. It's just not the same. I don't know whether so many things are talked about now that weren't talked about 20 years ago, different aspects of lives, right? And I don't know whether this one is as talked about, the impact it has on you when your kids move away. And I'm sort of used to it now because it's been 18 months and they come back and go away and come back and go away a bit, and it's not like they never come home to visit. But I'm definitely coming to terms with it. And I think as you speak to more people, especially older people who've been through it, it's kind of an interesting topic to talk to them about and make you realise that, you're not the only one who feels strange.
I agree. It was a really powerful component of the conversation when we last spoke, and it's something that people are talking about more and more. But Amanda Keller also was a guest on the Stella podcast last year, and that was really emotional for her as well. I think it is, as that person said to you, it can be something that creeps up on you. And look, this is still ahead of me yet, but I do think the bittersweet quality of it, because of course, like so many other things that we've now normalised, whether it's, menopause or conversations around mental health, they've always been there. We're just now normalising the conversation. I think that emptiness / free birding is the new frontier, because also the relationship between children and parents has evolved from what it was in previous generations. I mean, I know, of course, you very close to your mum, were very close to your late dad, but a lot of people from Gen X and baby boomers didn't necessarily have that closeness. Once they moved out, it became a bit of sort of, Christmas and Easter. That close relationship of them coming back, I think, is meaning that the conversation is shifted a little bit for our generation, maybe.
or they just didn't talk about it. I think maybe it was particularly mums. I think they just sort of had to go, cry in the bathroom.
Yes.
And not vocalise it. So now I think because we talk about everything, I think it's just something that, I've had quite a few conversations, and I think it's just nice to chat with other people who are going through it or who might be about to go through it. And it's, it's not the end of the world, but it's nice to sort of have support. And you don't want your kids to be still living at home at 35, do you? Do you?
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to come a bit full circle, reflecting on your status as the ultimate survivor of breakfast TV. Nat, you're 57, and as I just said, I don't think you look a day older than you did when you were in your wedding dress in 1995. I mean, I really do. I mean, you're on the cover of Stella today. I mean, you look fantastic. I'm not saying everyone has to look that fantastic at 57, but you do, and I'm not blowing smoke. That's just true. I'd love to ask you about how that veteran status, and I caught myself there because I was going to say, is veteran a loaded word? But why is that a loaded word? If I was sitting here to Carl, I didn't think that if I'd said to Carl, you're like the veteran of today, I don't think there's any tension around that. Yeah. He is, and he inhabits that space with great confidence, and Koshi did as well. I'm assuming I'm thinking that because, there's a loaded dynamic because women are judged differently from an ageism perspective. Just at the Logies the other day, there was that joke about it's still rare to have women over 60 on TV, and I like to personally think that that's come a long, long way from where it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I think the fact that it's even being used as a punchline at the Logies means it's still a thing. What are your thoughts on all of that?
On how long I'm going to last?
Even the fact that would be a conversation. If I'm saying to you, you're the reigning veteran of Australian breakfast TV.
Yes.
Can you just inhabit and own that?
Yeah.
Or do you think, what does that mean? Like, is she saying that I'm old? Because I'm not. But Carl and Koshi, I don't think would have second-guessed that in any way. And maybe you're not.
No, I don't think too much about those sort of labels. I don't think too much about my age. I'm just the person who goes into work and does my job. And I really just try and work hard, and I don't think too much about age either. I really don't. I mean, I walk in with no makeup on. They all see me how I wake up. I scrape my hair back with none of these hair pieces and no eyelashes and no makeup. They see what I look like. I'm coming in cold. And then we TVify ourselves because that's how it looks better on camera. And that's how I present. And then when I do my cooking videos, I have no makeup on either. I think I'm as advertised. People see me both ways. I'm not hiding. So I think, you just do your best. You go in, do your job, work hard, and we'll just see what happens, won't we? I've never looked too far into the future. The whole time I was reading news, people asked me, what's the next step? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? Do you want to take over from Mel? Do you want to take over from Sam? Every single interview I did. I honestly have never looked that far forward, and I kind of think that's worked. So I'm just living in the moment. It's a great job and I'm really enjoying it, and I honestly can't think too far ahead. It's for now.
Do you get annoyed when people like me, like you interview people every day, so it's a journo interviewing a journo.
Yes.
Are you thinking, come on, enough of the milestones and this and that, I'm living my life. Do when you're coming in to do an interview like this, is there a part of you that thinks, that's just not how I think and I don't want to go there?
Yeah. Yeah, I would much rather be asking the question, Sarah, and you know that. I'm not as comfortable on this side. So I do get an insight into how everyone else feels when I'm doing the interviewing. It's not my natural habitat.
Well, thank you for your time and your generosity. My final question, actually, because was recently the Logies, was that Lynn McGranger, of course, won this year. Lynn was on the podcast earlier this year. Last year was Larry Emder. Larry hasn't been on the Stella podcast, so I don't know how he won the Gold Logie, but there you go, because everyone else that's won the Gold Logie has been on the Stella podcast.
Have to
but
get
there
him
you go.
in here.
Exactly. But love Larry. Sonia the year before. So this, my question is, Nat, when are we going to see you up there? Because that's got to, surely there's got to, I know you don't like to look into the future, but there's surely got to be a Gold Logie.
Oh,
Logie
God,
in
no.
your
Look,
future?
as I say, I just rock up and do my job.
Nat, thank you for squelching the natural aversion to coming and talking about yourself and me asking the questions. But it's been lovely to talk to you. Congratulations on your upcoming 30th wedding anniversary to you and Andrew, and congratulations on 23 years.
Thank you.
On Sunrise.
Thanks for having me.
Making history. Look forward to that Survivor spin-off very soon. And you, of course, can see the fabulous Natalie Barr on Sunrise on weekdays on the 7 Network. Thanks again, Nat.
Thank you.